So I mean, my experience with the VA, and it's not unlike most people's experience as veterans, right? So I out-processed and got a rating of 80%. And over a period of time, they dropped me to 40%, just on a basic review of my records. And it felt like, looking back on it now, when people apply for their disability rating, and I've talked to you about this before. I
just had a conversation this morning with someone who's running for the select board in my town.
I've had several conversations with veterans where it's always minimize or deny, right? Mm-hmm. That's the first goal. And it's like a large insurance company, like health insurance company.
Yeah.
The first thing they do is deny.
Yeah.
They deny the claim, and you quit. The system is designed to make you quit. And only the people that continue to fight get what they deserve. But you're talking about,
That's what this woman, Rachel, said this morning. She goes, it's almost like it's designed to just shove you away. I said, exactly. Yeah.
And you're talking about Vietnam vets, Korea, some of them are still around. Even Desert Storm now, you're talking about guys that are older. They don't have all that time. They have a limited amount of time when they're going to be alive.
Yeah.
And if you push, so the government is basically betting on the fact that people are quitting and giving up on their claims.
Not just quitting, but what did that make you feel like when they pulled your rating?
So they pull my rating and I'm like, wait a minute. Do I really deserve this?
And hold on. And for anyone listening or watching, when you have a VA rating, it's not forever, which to us doesn't make sense because you, in some cases or a lot of cases, you're permanently disabled, right? So there's different laws on the levels, right? So you could be 100% and they can still pull your rating. If you're 100% permanent total PNT, they can't, which is why I like to get my veterans to PNT, because just knowing that can get pulled, knowing you might have to somehow come up with money and have to get a job when you physically can again, knowing the stress that is caused by, I've said it many times before, there's an issue with homeless veterans. So if a veteran's homeless and they have 100%, but they're homeless, the VA will send them a letter and they'll want to do a review. So the VA will do like 1, 3, 5-year reviews. And when that veteran's homeless, they'll send the mail to the homeless veteran, right? You know where I'm going with this. They'll send it to the address.
Last known address.
They don't live there anymore. No. And then that veteran doesn't get it. And then, let's say they're hooked on drugs or whatever. And, or they need that money for whatever the frick they need it for. They go to pull that money or see if the money's there the first of the month and it's completely gone. So now you're homeless and now you have no finances. And people wonder why we still have a suicide issue. So what did that make you feel like when they pulled it? And did you even know that they could do that at first?
Well, so my understanding when I left was I got a rating and that was my rating, right? And my conditions when I left were permanent, right? They were permanent conditions. They weren't going to change over time.
They still are.
Right. And they are today. And the only reason I'm 100% is because I met you, right? But I was managing a household where my wife at the time was not working. And that 80% was important because it facilitated our ability to buy groceries, right? To pay insurance policies, to pay the mortgage without me having to work 80 hours a week. Granted, I was lucky. I wasn't physically disabled, but my mental health disabilities presented themselves later on down the road.
Yeah.
To complete disability, inability to work, inability to go to school, inability to provide for myself. I had to have a psychologist.
Yeah, you were hot and cold. You were like 3 different people. at one point.
At least.
Yeah.
At least, right? You're talking about bipolar 1 with psychotic features. I mean, there's no remedy, right? You can put it in remission, but there's no remedy. You have to continue to work on that every single day.
And manage it, yeah.
If you don't manage it, your life is over. You're in the hospital, locked down.
So when you went from 80 to 40, what did that do?
It destroyed my ability to function, right? Because then I was divorced, and they put me at 40 before I was divorced, and
Double whammy.
I mean, and then I got banged. I got banged with child support, which is fine. I'm responsible for my kid, right? I'm responsible financially, but you're talking about an extra. I mean, I had one child, and I was paying $1,100 a month in child support. That's unheard of for a working class person. You're talking about, I'm working 80 hours a week, 60 to 80 hours a week just to make the $100,000. And the court was like, yeah, you made a shit ton of money. Pay up.
Pony up, yeah.
Yeah, pay up. And, you know, I don't think much about it now. You know, my kid deserves the money. My ex-wife spends the money appropriately, right? Spends it on him. She doesn't spend it on her.
Yeah.
But at the time, it was debilitating, right? And then I spiraled into a place where I couldn't work. I could only work my shift as a cop, right? I was a cop at that time. So working my 40-hour shift was as much as I could manage. I was sleeping all day, working nights, working mid-shift, and I couldn't function.
Just maxed out on energy.
Gone. I went into $30,000 worth of debt overnight in 1 year, in a 12-month period. And then I ended up in the hospital because I had that incident with the veteran out in the street.
Out in the street, yeah.
And in the hospital, right? And I met you afterwards. And the psychologist told me she's not even supposed to talk about it. She's not even supposed to talk about my rating. And one day,
Which makes no sense because they have all the information right in front of you.
they have everything.
In order to treat what they have to treat, they have to look at what you're diagnosed with and approved through the VA, which has to do with what you're rated for.
They have everything. They could actually advise veterans accurately about their rating, right? But she's literally looking at me going, I'm not supposed to talk about this, but your rating is wrong. Go find this person. And I randomly found you off of, whatever.
Yeah.
Ripped your number off the wall. And it changed my life, like overnight. You're talking about somebody that went from struggling mentally, not working, not going to school, not engaging in the community, not going out, like I couldn't go anywhere, and $30,000 in debt to a year later after you and I met. We're talking about my debt's gone. I'm playing golf again. I'm no longer in clinical depression, going back to school, finishing my bachelor's degree, now in my master's, all because those pieces of the puzzle
Fell into place. That's a conversation I had with this woman, Rachel. She's running for selectman in my town, and she wanted to reach out about the veteran stuff in the veterans office because I've had a lot to do with it in the town. And I told her the same thing I try to preach to people. And it is my belief because I've been doing this so long, this situation that we're talking about with access being granted and people having the appropriate training and knowing what to do, that is the suicide problem. Because like you just said, when you can fix someone coming in the door that has all the issues, that you had, mental, physical, lifestyle, family, living location, you name it. And all those things can start to fall into place. But you also have someone that knows what they're doing, knows where to send the appropriate paperwork, knows how to push it, knows what timelines need to be followed, can be a resource for you isn't sitting there and just lying to you like, oh yeah, it's here, but I can't show you anything, or it's there. You know what I mean? Like I was able to see on VBMS, you know what I mean, what your temperature was when you went for your checkups every year.
What's VBMS though?
VBMS stands for Veterans Benefit Management System. Yeah. Every veteran service officer is supposed to have it. He's supposed to be accredited, and then once you become accredited and trained, that's the system that has all of your military history in it, and it has everything that the VA does as well, so you can see all records.
Like I literally walked into your office. You actually grabbed me, and you're like, "Hey, come into the office." Called me and was like, "Where the fuck are you?" And I'm like at the front door.
Yeah, at the front
door. And you're
door.
like, "Hey, man, come into my office." And then you turn like 5 people away while I was sitting there, and you're like, "Dude, I'm like looking at this shit, and you've got like 3 computer screens, and you're like going after it." And you're like, "Oh yeah, I can see this. I can see this. Oh yeah, you had malaria. You had 104.5 fever. Like
this is where you went to high school. This is your mom's name. This is your dad's name." Yeah.
Never seen that before, right? Like I've been involved with people that claimed that they could help, but none of them had the access or the training or had gone into the system and educated themselves about how to, and this is the thing. The VA is fucking whack-a-mole, right? It's whack-a-mole.
Yeah.
The VA has the hammer, and we're all popping up saying, "Hey, I got this issue. I got this issue. I got this issue." And they're going bang, bang. And they're just hoping you don't pop back up again.
And I'm glad you just pointed that out, because I said this morning, the VA doesn't do claims. They receive them, right? So who does claims? Your town, legacy veteran companies, VFW, DAV.
Lawyers that take money from you.
Claim sharks, you know what I mean? And you know, especially like the VFW and DAV, they have these systems. And if you go on their state website, they don't even have one person in either office that works a 40-hour week by their own listing. Not in the people that have this program that sit up at the JFK building, not one of them even works a 40-hour week by their own admission on their own website.
Somebody should do like the most simple audit, right, of all those individuals, right? VFW, Veterans of Foreign Wars, claim assistance, whatever they're supposed to, representatives. Mm-hmm. Just call them. Call them. They don't have an email. They don't have a direct line.
Some of them do, but they don't give it out to you.
But call them. Call every one of them. I guarantee you 95% of them go to voicemail. And then they don't get back to you for 3 to 4 weeks. And then they don't have the training. But they say, "Oh, yeah, we can do this, we can do that, we can do that." And all they do is put in the one piece of paperwork saying, "We're filing a claim." They don't have access to all my medical records. They don't have access to all the documents that are required to support the claim.
To then apply the law that is available on your behalf, that it states that it's supposed to be there, right? The law states, the CFR, that you are supposed to be represented by an accredited person. You have to be accredited to do this, right? Because the accreditation will show you with the computer system and training everything of what to do. All right, well, you can't do anything unless you have VBMS. You know what I mean? And there's just so few people in the state that have it. And it's just, I've been beating this drum for year after year. Rachel's like the 15th person in a town or in the state that I've had to meet and do this with. You know what I mean? State rep after state rep after senator after senator after senator. They're not.
Well, we've had
so by it is by design. Like for example, years ago we had the burn pit issues, right? Remember that? Like
and they passed the law.
There's a burn pit registry. And who was up there with John Stewart in Washington D.C. The VFW, right? Guess what VBMS has? The location of everywhere you served.
And even what you were doing.
Even when you went overseas.
Yeah.
Therefore, you don't need some bullshit registry to go, because that's outside people that don't know about the system of VBMS, which shows everything. So the VFW, they give you one little crumb on the bottom of what's important, and you peck away at that for fucking 10 years. But if you just had VBMS, You know, you were a corpsman. When you go over theater, the records go with you.
Absolutely.
And it shows, okay, I went from the United States to Iraq. I went from here to here. Then you're in Iraq. You're on this base. You're on that base. You didn't need some fucking bullshit burn pit registry.
They're all
You just
scanned.
needed the law, which says that you're supposed to be accredited and have this program followed.
Yeah. All those records. So as a corpsman, right? So when I wrote a sick call,
Pisses me off so bad.
like the most minimal thing, right? I wrote sick call for somebody and they've got an upper respiratory infection, right? And they've been doing burn pit for a week, right? They've got upper respiratory issues. They've got pneumonia. They've got something going on. That record is scanned in as soon as we get CONUS.
Yeah.
As soon as we get CONUS, those records are all scanned in. And if they aren't scanned in then, they're scanned in on discharge, right? Your file goes to a database and they're all scanned in. And VBMS is the program to access all that. And none of these people have access to VBMS. But they're presenting themselves. This is the crazy part. This is like...
You know what the crazy part is? The VFW, the DAB, know what they say when they represent you? As if you're an NSO, National Service Officer, and you work for them, which is what I was. Don't give the veteran their whole record. Excuse me? Don't give them the evidence that is going to prove that they're fucked up and that's what they're here for while the suicide rate is skyrocketing? Don't give them their own record? What?
Yeah, because the system that they've been working in, that they're completely incompetent in. Like this is, so the government basically set up a system where the people that are in charge, not in charge, but the government represents these people as being the access point, right? Mm-hmm. This is the access point for your disability claim. Can't help you. And not can't help you, what you're talking about is won't help you.
Yeah.
That's the fucked up part about it is...
I got in trouble so many times for printing a whole record out for a veteran. I'm like, here. My boss, I'm not going to mention his name. My boss was like, you can't do that. You can't give the veteran. I'm like, fuck, I can't.
It's our record.
And the law, and they also have the, you can't be like helped by anybody that's not accredited, right? So me, a former accredited person who has knowledge on this, and this is the job I did, I can't go to someone who's in need, who served, and educate that person on how to alleviate their stress, find the correct path to go apply for things. You want me to just shut my fucking mouth? I don't think so. I'm a free American citizen, so I'm going to help every veteran that I'm fucking... You're out of your fucking mind.
Well, they don't want the system to work.
No.
They don't want it to work.
No shit.
If it worked...
You know what would happen if it worked? It would continue the privatization conversation because, dude, if you go just by the numbers, right? Like Massachusetts has what? The numbers fluctuate every year. You know, I think it's 383,000 veterans or something like that. It's got to be more than that, right? And you only have those two offices, let's say the VFW, the DAB, doing, you know, on a good year, 2,000 cases a year. What's the math on that?
I mean, you're talking
so
about
379,000 veterans.
You're talking about over 100 years to get to all the cases.
Aren't appropriately represented.
Yeah.
At all. So then how many people the VA actually serving? But they're overloaded? Wrong.
They're not
my ass.
They're not overloaded. These are federal employees that are literally, so all it requires...
Primary care doctors only do 6 patients a day. 6.
All it requires for a federal employee that works with a VA is to file the paperwork. And what that requires is them to scan the documents. And I ran into this, right? We talked about a higher level review for my GI Bill, right? My GI Bill timed out at 15 years, right? And I was disabled and clinically depressed for over, 2 years. There was 2 years of a gap where I couldn't attend school and I couldn't do this and I couldn't do that.
Yeah.
And they were like, no, you're timed out. And I filed the paperwork, my entire medical record. 700 pages, right? And they were like, deny. Insufficient evidence. insufficient evidence. What? But then they're like, well, you can do a higher level review. And then we're sitting talking. You're like,
depending on which one you do, you can only do it once.
now I can do this once, but I have you who knows the system, right? Because there's nowhere else to go, right? There's nowhere else to go. You can't sue the government. They win. No. You can't sue the government.
And now you can't sue the town VSO because they slid in the HERO Act in the back end of it. Senator Vilas told me this because he was like, you were right. Like every case that wasn't appropriately represented in East Town, I go, every person has the right to sue that town because you put an unqualified individual in the town. Oh, eyes got big. They slid something into the back end of the HERO Act saying that you can't do that anymore, but they still haven't fixed. The hole is still there. Now you can't sue the town because we don't provide it. We don't provide the proper training, but we haven't provided the appropriate training of the people to fix it so that you can go to them now. So the hole's still there.
Well, and they don't. So I would argue
and mind you, Massachusetts is the only state that's working on this.
Right. And I would argue that the majority of the people that are in positions with the VFW and the DAV that are the access point don't want to do the work. They don't want to go to the training. They don't want to have VMEMS. They don't want to do the self-education.
I was asked quite a few times. I was asked by Senator Rush. I was asked by Senator Vilas. I was asked by Senator O'Connor. Do you think that, like, you know, a VSO is going to want this? I'm like, well, first off, it's their job, and the law says that we're supposed to be doing this, and they're not doing it. And I know for a fact there are VSOs in towns, a VSO in Weymouth. Used to talk to him all the time. He knows, like, what I do, what I did, and I was, you know, level above him. I'm like, this is wrong. You know, you yada, yada, yada. You're supposed to be doing claims. Claims is your only job. You go in his office, there is shit all over the walls for picking up trash in the street for veterans, planting flags at the cemetery. Chapter 115 is big. Your primary job as a VSO is to file claims for benefits. And he said, we can't do that. We can't. And he has an assistant. Okay, so he's doing Chapter 115 and he has an assistant, making it seem like he has this big, important job. He's not even doing the primary functions of his job. So you're right. There are people that are in those positions that are very comfortable. They've been in the town for a long time, and they don't want to do shit. And I'm sorry, those people need to fucking go.
Well, it's about the image, right? It's not about the work. The work is hard. It's not easy, right? The work is always hard because you're fighting a system that is designed to make you go away. And it's going to require you to put in hours and actually work let's just get you to work a 40-hour week. Fuck working.
Do you know why they don't do that? Because they prey on 100%ers, veterans, to come work for them because they already get a paycheck and they already have health care because they don't want to pay the health care.
They don't want to pay the benefits.
But the three people at the top for the VFW that work in that office, two of them were civilians when I worked there. Guess what they got?
Everything.
$65,000, $70,000 a year, benefits, 2 weeks paid vacation. Meanwhile, I'm the ADSO, second in charge, doing appeals, doing this, doing that, filing claims. I have to be on a board. Got to travel to freaking Nevada to vote on things from time to time. 20-something hours a week, $20 an hour. They have an illegal, I don't want to say like it is, they don't have a fair payment system for their employees. They pay this employee this, they pay that employee that, and it's usually the 100%ers. I realize that all of us were 100%ers because they wouldn't have to pay for benefits. That's disgusting. So yes, the VFW screws their own veterans that work for them, but the people with the hats, you know, up at the top, they all get paid based off what the office does. Well, because the office is what generates money.
But they know what's coming.
Otherwise, they would just keep closing posts because they're just bars.
Yeah, but it's cheap beer. Yeah. Right? It's a $3 Coors Light, right? And that's fun, right?
That's fun.
That's fun. Like I can have a good time at a VFW.
Yeah.
I might have to Uber home, but I'm gonna have a good time. Or call my wife and be like, "Hey, I gotta leave my car here."
Yeah, I'm banged up.
Yeah, I'm banged up, right? But that's what they give you, right? They give you the low hanging fruit. They give you these. It's just bullshit, right? So and it's changing the culture. It's in every organization, right? In every business organization, private organization, right? When they're not profitable, what do? They come in and they change the culture, right? They fire the bottom 10% as far as production goes. They immediately get rid of them because they're not producing. And they're just riding out on their salary, right? So the VFW and the DAV know what's coming if this happens, if this change in culture happens. It's not just 10%. You're talking about a huge percentage of people that if they don't get on board, they don't sign on to VBMS, they don't sign on to self-education, they don't sign on to all this stuff to help veterans, they're gone. They're all gone. But it's a governmental entity, right? It's a quasi-governmental entity.
They got their fingers in everything already.
Yeah, they're already dug in. It's a cancer. It's absolutely 100% a cancer, right? But instead of using chemo, we're using a pill that changes your body chemistry but doesn't really solve anything, right? Oh, well, we'll stop the cancer from spreading, but you're still going to die, right? And so all these people that are looking for benefits, that are looking for disability claims, they're all going to die. They're all going to age out and die. They've been living with this cancer that is the VFW and the DAV.
I've had people die and they didn't age out. They were young, our age.
But that's because what we've done, what we've been exposed to, is not natural, right? This is not a natural course of existence, right? You're talking about stress, trauma, chemicals, just physical violence, right? You can't exist in that environment and not get physical ailments and mental health ailments, right? You're talking about the suicide rate, right? That's mental health. It's drastic. Like it's a huge problem.
Like, guys, if we got, we've been getting this information out to the masses. You know what I mean? And the woman, Rachel, I think she said she wants to put me in touch with this reporter down here on the South Shore. I'm like, good. Like, he's looking to do information pieces and stuff. I'm like, come on. If you got this information out to the country, right, I'm telling you that it would start to fix the suicide problem. If you got every office was just accredited, and that was what I was discussing with Senator Vilas. He was like, well, how hard would this be to do? And I was like, you could do it two different ways. You could go through the VFW. They already travel the country. I was like, you could split up Massachusetts into, 3 different dates in 1 year. And you could do, 120 towns, 120, whatever it adds up to. And we got these nice big convention centers. I'm pretty sure you guys already have a shitload of money in grants. The VFW already travels. They come here and train 120, and then 3 months later, another 120, right? And they could have that year one of school out of the 3 years, which is all on claims. They could have that done in 1 year. I said, or you can go to the Texas County Veterans Association because they do the training as well. And I had to research where you could find this training. And now what is Massachusetts doing? Getting trained through the Texas County Veterans Association, okay? But they're only doing, I think he even said 22 to 24 VSOs at first and then 6 train the trainers. But then they were still going to get screwed with a laptop. I was like, did you have anybody from the VFW or the DAV help you with these conversations? I don't need any names. I'm not trying to point fingers. And he said, yes, I did. I go, and no one told you about the laptop? And he goes, what laptop? So you'd have the training, but not the access to utilize the training because you wouldn't have the laptop. They were just going to string them along again. Oh, you're accredited. Great. But I need access to this veterans information. That's what I need. You know what I mean? They were still playing that game. The information he was getting fed wasn't even told about a laptop. And the laptop's free. He's like, how much is this going to cost? I go, the VA gives it to you. What? I haven't seen anybody with a laptop. You know what I mean?
It's not a money issue.
You get this out. This will stop because when a veteran is coming off the street, they're homeless, coming off of the battlefield when they've been to war, because we've been at war for 20-something fucking years, when life, trauma, all the shit that happens that we've seen our friends, and I've seen case after case, and they can all be different. But when they get to that person that is supposed to be the person to help them, and all that person can do is make excuses and lie over a period of time because they don't have access to any of the information. They're just feeding that veteran a bunch of bullshit. That veteran loses faith, and they go back out of that office, and they start bouncing around. You know what I mean? And then that's the beginning of getting turned away at the door. And then you wait years and years and years, and then you bump into another veteran, like, oh, well, go to this guy. This guy's great. Then you go to that guy, and it's the same fucking thing. And you also have a problem with VSOs who don't want to get up and speak about this shit because they don't want to. You don't need to change the law. You just need to start fucking following it. There are so many VSOs that have worked for 2, 3, 4 towns. Why? Because they've made excuses for 2, 3 years, and, well, I really like the job. All right, well, I'm going to go to another town because I've exhausted all my excuses with these veterans that are coming looking for answers and I don't have anymore. So I'll just go to another town. And then they go to the other town. No, you got to deal with this in your town. But you don't. You've seen me. I do cases all that come from across the country. You can do it. You can live in this town and go to that VSO because he's good. It's not stuck to that one town. So you have VSOs that are lying too. So anytime I meet a VSO that's worked at 3, 4 locations, I'm just like, fuck you.
This is a Marine Corps thing. For me anyway, I have no experience with Army. Or the Coast Guard, not leaving out the Coast Guard and the Air Force.
I got a Coastie I'm dealing with right now, and he's a cop.
But this is a Marine Corps thing, right? So you PT every day, right? You run the hills, you get in your gas mask, you run and do all kinds of shit. But every once in a while, they make you run the obstacle course, right? And that's the fun day.
Oh, yeah.
Right? This is like when you're competing against all your guys and you're just having a good time, right? And the problem is that the VA has developed an obstacle course, right? Through intention and by accident, right? There's some intention there. There's also accident, right? And they realize it benefits them, but they've developed an obstacle course that's literally impossible to negotiate and get to the end.
Unless you find that rare person.
If you get somebody that knows what the fuck they're doing, that obstacle course, some of the course breaks down, right? Some of the netting that you have to climb up and scale over and jump down the other side, the rope slide, like all that stuff starts to minimize and you can actually get through. But the percentage of people that meet somebody that can actually negotiate the course with them and minimize some of the obstacles is a minuscule amount. You're talking about maybe 5-10% at the most.
5.
And it's embarrassing. This is an embarrassing moment for veteran services.
Yeah.
Right? You're going to have guys that die. Like I know one specific guy, right? He sold me my house. He's a Vietnam vet. Everybody in his unit is 100% disabled. Everybody. This guy's 80% and has been for, maybe 2 decades. Before that, he was 50 or 40, right? And the embarrassment, like I'm talking to him now. I'm new age combat, right? Iraq, right? And MST. And I'm looking at him and going, yeah, I'm 100%. And he's like, I'm 80, but everybody in my unit is 100. And I say to him, what? Because I know you. I go, that's bullshit, right? But they designed an obstacle course for this guy that was impossible. It was impossible. There's no way he should be 80%.
No.
If
I had a gentleman that come in from 125 Marines, Massachusetts, and a lot of the unit was 100%. And he's like, what the fucking, you know what I mean? I got him to 100%. Same as Jamie. Used to be a good buddy of mine. Every time I see him at the gym, I'm like, what's up? But like, once that got fixed, the joy, right? The relaxation. Oh God, like now I get the benefits that everybody else got that did the same things as me. You know what I mean? He ended up quitting from the job he had because now he can go to school. And he goes to school, he gets a degree, and then he goes and gets a job that he wants. His whole life.
Overnight. Overnight.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, when you have people that served in the same unit and they're same MOS, you know what I mean? Same job, infantry, whatever. And that's when you start to realize veterans are like, well, how come this guy over here and that guy over here and this? It's about who you meet. Because they don't educate us and tell us where to go, who has access to what, who can do what. It's the big wheel, just running around crazy, just trying to figure it out over a long stretch of time. Like you just said, you Vietnam vet, you know what I mean? Korean veterans that have come in. It's bullshit. You know what I mean? I should have came in a long time ago for my rating. They didn't know where to go. I mean, I told the story about this guy David, black man. His DD-214 said, ignorant N-word, can't comply to military life. He did 3.5 years in the military, was getting fucked with. Oh yeah, dude, I got him to 100% like Gillette. I was like, I'm your guy, dude. And that's the guy that brought in like a big bottle of whiskey as a thank you. I was like, I don't drink that shit. He was like, well, give it to somebody that you do. He's like, you fucking deserve it.
Where is it? Because you could pass them out.
It was years ago, bro. Wow. Yeah. I was like, you walked us through the police and the VA hospital? He's like, yeah. I'm like, oh, great. Like right to my office. Yeah, David, he was crying. He's like, how did you do what you did? I was like, sir, you've been lied to for a long time. Just, I'm not going to lie to you. This is what's going on. This is the difference. He's like, dude, you just changed my life. He's like, do you know how long? I go, yeah, since 1981. 1981.
I was negative 1 year
2019, 2020 is when I did that case. 1980 fucking one. Because they were racist as fuck to him and literally wrote the N-word on his DD-214.
It's embarrassing.
So he thinks he's crazy and just a loser for 40 fucking years.
Yeah.
That's what you did to the guy? You're lucky he wasn't one of the people that killed himself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Fuck you.
Yeah. And we know current people. I mean, obviously, one of my best friends that you're helping. I mean, just involved in some really heinous shit.
Bro, it's such a hard case. And we thank God we got a bump. You know what I mean? Got a bump up, which is positivity. Kind of allows me to still do what I do for the veteran. You know what I mean? Like, we're not done yet. But just the way that they're redacting those records is disgusting. Like, because if you had VBMS right now with her case, we'd be able to see who redacted the records. And I could go right at them and be like, this is illegal.
And how can you tell somebody, like, this is crazy to me. How can you tell somebody, okay, we have all your records, but you were never here and you were never there. And then that veteran has paper records because they were completely unlike me. I had nothing, right? I had nothing when I came to see you. I had my DD-214.
Yeah.
That's what I had.
Your smart ass attitude and your DD-214.
Yeah. But how can you tell this veteran, you were never here. You were never in that hospital. You were never on this ship, or you were never here or there. And then there's records. And not only are there records, there's records of all kinds of nefarious things that are attached.
You think NCIS wants to tell on themselves that they haven't done anything with the case?
But that's the problem.
Do you think that people want to know that there was a Fat Leonard scandal where 480 plus Navy and military personnel went to jail, lost their officers' titles, got kicked out of the military because they were doing cocaine, banging hookers, and raping people on boats? That should be front page fucking news. I had never even heard about it. And then I start digging into it. I'm like, you got to be shitting me. And those cases are still active, and NCIS has a handle in it. So when you do a claim on that veteran, they send back saying that a FOIA request was enacted, which we did not enact, and then there's no contact name, email, phone number to fucking even discuss it with anybody. Way to go, government, NCIS. Really good, guys. Really appreciate it.
Yeah. So most of these governmental offices, right, which is wild to me, right? We're in the world of the internet, Like, we have email. Everybody has an email, right? Everybody has a phone number. Like, if you want to talk to Washington, D.C., you don't get to email them. You don't.
There's only 2 phone numbers that I know of. And the phone number I gave.
But those phone numbers are found.
That I gave.
Yeah.
Ended up pushing that real fast.
But those phone numbers are from personal, like, connections. Those aren't anything that's pushed out to the public.
No.
Right.
That's from me working with who I've worked with, always asking questions, going to always take a meeting to find out the answers, driving to ungodly locations across the state to just have a 30-minute conversation with somebody, because I knew if I had that little bit of information, I could put that in my Rolodex to, like, help with this and this and this. And dude, it's taken so long just to fucking.
But if you're hiding like that, right? So for me to do the higher level review, I had to snail mail the paperwork to Washington, D.C. Now, I had to call 4 different numbers to just verify that they actually received it. And that was 4 weeks after I mailed it out.
Yeah.
I had been calling for 4 weeks. And then I finally got the right number to give me the number to call. And they were like, oh yeah, they received it on March 3rd. Now it's been almost 4 weeks since they received it, or 3 weeks. Do you think they've sent me anything?
No. Which is why whenever I do a case, I always put in I'll put the paperwork in, but then I'll always take the fax or mail receipt that it was mailed or faxed or received, and then I'll put that in on top of it to let them know, I know you got it. You know what I mean?
But this goes to any person out there. Like, there are people out there that understand that the government is not your friend.
No.
Right? Anybody out there that thinks that big government or government agencies are your friend, you're
higher than a hippie on a helicopter ride.
Badly fucking mistaken.
Yeah.
You're badly fucking, and this is just one representation of that. This is not the overall representation. And we were talking about this. Like, I'll give you one example from my education, right? I'm in my master's program for psychology, clinical psychology, right? I'm going to counsel veterans and first responders. That's my deal. Like, that's where I'm going to serve my community now, because I can't get in a uniform. I can't carry a gun. I'm not in the military anymore, but I'm going to figure out how to serve people, right? The way that you serve people as an NSO. And you're doing it now, right? Even after the fact, you're doing it.
Because no one else is going to.
In the early 1900s to, I'd say mid 1900s to the later 1900s, the government did what's called a Tuskegee experiment, right? And it had to do with syphilis. They injected black men with syphilis and just watched them deteriorate and die. They had the solution. They had the medicine to cure it, right?
They didn't use it.
They refused to use it because they wanted to see what happened. That's government. There was all government agents that injected those gentlemen with that disease. If you don't think shit like that is happening now,
yeah,
you're out of your fucking mind.
You're starting to see some of it.
You're out of your fucking mind. Yeah. And it happened with COVID, right? And they're talking about spike protein, and they're talking about toxins. You know, your body's supposed to replicate in your cells. Your mRNA is supposed to replicate proteins, healthful proteins. It's called a spike protein for a reason. It goes in your cell, every cell of your body. It's in your brain, it's in your heart, it's in your liver, it's in your kidneys, it's in your muscle tissue, it's in everything. It goes into the cell, it's replicated, and then it's sent out. It's a toxin. You can argue this point. You can say, well, that's bullshit, blah, 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 blah. There's science behind it. Mm-hmm. If you're a person that believes in science and truly believes in cellular Biology. There's plenty of doctors that have been doing this a long time that will tell you the cancer rates and the types of cancers they're seeing right now because of what's happened with spike protein and those vaccinations that were all new. They'll tell you, oh, we've been developing them since the 1970s. Okay. Who did you give them to? Where are the trials?
Right. They didn't have enough time.
Where are the trials?
You and I talked about this because, right, with your medical background and then my MOS, you know what I mean, nuke biochem, I was like, I'm not taking this shit. You're out of your fucking mind. There's no way. My kids didn't get it. Ooh, thank God. You know what I mean? I made sure my kids didn't get that. And, I mean, you've seen too many people drop. Healthy young people drop left and right. You know what I mean? I just remember a lot of people being crazy, like, hey, I can take the jab like the rest of us. Well, I'm not like you.
Well, you can't even defend it, right? Because, and this has been played out on the internet, on YouTube, on TikTok, and on Instagram. There's interviews with people, and they say, listen, let's go back to what was being said, right? Fauci, the NIH, all those individuals were saying, if you take the vaccine, you can't get COVID. If you take the vaccine, you can't infect somebody else. Then they moved the goalposts.
Oh, yeah, dude. Gaslit us.
Then they moved the reason they're moving the goalposts is because they didn't do trials. They didn't do appropriate testing of the vaccine, and they had no knowledge of what would happen. And they were trying to force through shame, right? We're going to shame you if you don't take the vaccine because you're not a true citizen.
And what did the VA do? VA cut off care to every single veteran unless you got the shot.
You had to get the shot. You had, and
even just to go on the property.
And I didn't. So I actually got tested for COVID at the VA.
Me too. Like fucking 80 times.
Yeah. And I came up positive.
Because I had that many appointments over the course of a year. It was just,
yeah.
I'm like, I'm tired of this shit.
I came up positive and they were like, oh, you need the vaccine. I'm like, I already had COVID.
Well, but then they had false positive tests.
I'm like, yeah, but if you're right, I already had COVID, right? I'm fine. Like, yeah, I got a cold, but I'm fine.
Even after everybody else had to stop wearing masks because it was a government facility, Biden was still pushing, got to fucking mask up, got to get your fucking shot.
But it speaks to the gullibility and the groupthink, right? The groupthink is the problem.
Yeah. Mob mentality.
The groupthink is the problem, right? So once they convinced a certain percentage of the population that this was the only course of action, anybody that didn't take that course of action was ostracized, right? They lost their job. They couldn't go to family functions.
You couldn't go to your father's funeral if you had.
You couldn't go see your grandmother or grandfather in the nursing home, even though they put COVID positive patients
right next to them
in the nursing home.
Yeah.
And they basically caused, deaths because those are medically, they're literally susceptible to a disease, but they're already medically unhealthy, right? And that's what was killing people was that if you were unhealthy, overweight, smoker, elderly, if you were an unhealthy child, the minuscule amount of children that passed with COVID, not from COVID, were unhealthy to begin with. So, and that happens. That happens with the flu. That happens with pneumonia. That happens with everything. Those that are exposed, that are susceptible to disease and death, usually do die. You're going to have a higher number of deaths or mortality, right? And they try to paint it as this is a death virus. No, it's not. And not only that, you put people on ventilators that should have never been on ventilators. should have never, and you put them into a coma, should have never done that, and you killed them. The greatest thing you could ever do to a population is use fear, right?
Oh yeah.
That's the primitive brain. That's the amygdala, right? You have the frontal cortex, you have parietal, you have all these sections of your brain that are designed to filter information and make decisions. But when you activate the amygdala with fear, you can control anybody. You can control anybody's response if you can activate fear. And that's what they did. And then that fear turned into anger, resentment.
Rage, yeah.
Yeah.
Unrest.
Yeah. And
Neighbors ratting on each other.
dude, this was like,
You went outside your house, motherfucker. I need sunlight.
I mean, people talk all the time about fascists and Nazis. There were communities throughout the world where it was apropos to narc on your neighbor for not taking the vaccine.
Yeah, Australia had a big problem with that.
Huge problem. And they were isolating people like they were in jail.
Yeah.
And they'll be like, well, we fed them. So you took their freedom away, but you fed them.
Yeah. Yeah,
That's okay.
That's not freedom.
That's okay.
You know what I mean? So, that kind of ties in like what the VA is doing with this, or what the VFW, DAB, they work together, so they all have a hand in it. You know what I mean?
Especially when it comes to the suicide.
Because I think if this came out like on a grand scale, what's actually going on, it would really, you could get rid of that VA budget and you could just privatize, give us a friggin' insurance card, you know what I mean, to go to the hospital, to go to any hospital. Then you wouldn't need those hospitals, right? They could just bill DC. Here you go. Because VA care, I try to tell this to people too, VA care is not regular health care. You know that. It's like plugging a Band-Aid. There's no like, when you go to your doctor, your primary care outside the VA, your regular hospital, you get a whole comprehensive care plan. You know what I mean? Like, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, we're going to follow up on it. Let me say that again. We're going to follow up on it, because the VA doesn't do that at all. And it's just like plug the Band-Aid, go figure out your next appointment by yourself. Go back to the primary care doctor, and then they'll send you here, or you'll get a referral. But then you gotta like, this office doesn't talk to that office. I had X-rays where I had bulging discs in my spine, and it says no further action needed. I'm like, and I could barely walk in there. You know what I mean? It's not a regular hospital. You also get threatened with certain things, right? A lot of veterans use marijuana for pain relief. If you go in there and they give you your yearly physical and you pop for marijuana, if you're on Adderall for ADHD or something like that, or they're going to pull it. Then they're going to mess with your rating.
Yeah, but
because then you don't need the Adderall for the ADHD and the PTSD. And it just keeps going downhill. It's like a threatening off. It's like I've actually had conversations with a few doctors where like threats have come out, like, you can't say this and you're not going to do that. And it's like, I'm supposed to be here to get assistance, not get fucking aggravated.
But here's the thing.
It's not a regular hospital.
Talk to any veteran that carries a private health insurance and the VA at the same time. And I'll ask you this question. You going to get surgery at the VA?
Fuck no.
Absolutely the fuck not. No, not doing it. But there's guys and girls, right? There's men and women that their only resource is the VA. Why won't any of us ever access the VA for significant care, which is like surgeries? You can go there for MRIs, you can go there for X-rays, you can go there for testing. But why won't you go there for surgery?
Because they've misdiagnosed me a bunch of times. Surgeons.
And half of them, right? So I saw a meme the other day. Fantastic.
Your quad's not torn. My knee's this big. It was this big.
Yeah.
It's just a mild patella tendon rupture. Really? It's the 6th one I've had. I don't think I have a patella tendon fucking left.
So I saw this meme.
And then bilateral math, right?
Yeah.
With the bilateral math, you stick the human body up and down, it's just a big square. Well, anything attached to the left quadrant doesn't have anything to, my lungs are connected. Oh, it doesn't matter. The left lung has nothing to do with the right lung. You know what I mean? Like, the left leg has nothing to do with the right. Well, my hip is, nope. Oh, they're not connected. Okay, so I have cancer here, here, here. Well, the left quadrant isn't connected to the right quadrant. Fuck off. It's a slap in the face.
But the meme I saw was funny, right? So the first picture is
We'll take a break after this.
my private primary care doctor said I ruptured my ACL. The second picture is my orthopedic surgeon told me I ruptured my ACL. Then I went to the VA. And it's like, really? Did you?
Dude, when I tore my quad, they told me there was no tear, right? And it's this big. They had to drain 2 vials out of there.
Oh, yeah,
And then
120
I told
cc's.
them, don't inject me with a steroid because I'm getting this looked at. You guys are full of shit. You're out of your mind, right? They inject me with this. I'm like, you motherfuckers, because if the VA does that, then you can't get surgery for 6 months. I go and I wait and I go to the women's U.S. national soccer team doctor, orthopedic surgeon out of Mass General Hospital, okay? First time I see her. Why didn't they have surgery on this? It was torn back then. Because I had to supply all those records and all the MRIs. And I was like, yeah, that's why I'm here. She's like, this is ridiculous. You need surgery. Prepared for it next week? Thanks, doc.
Yeah. And the fucked up part is the VA presents.
But the VA will tell me and you that we're crazy.
Even if they'll do the surgery, right? Say the VA will do the surgery. Say they accept your claim and they say, listen, you do have a tear, ACL, patella tendon, quadricep tendon, whatever it is. It doesn't fucking matter. We're going to do surgery. The surgeons and the doctors that go and work, especially the surgeons, in the private sector, they can make $500 to $1 million a year if they're good. Those surgeons that are going to the VA are making $250,000 a year, but they're protected by the federal government.
Mm-hmm.
They don't need to carry liability insurance or, medical malpractice insurance is what it basically is, right? That's what it actually is. And they do that because they're not that good.
No.
They're not that good. Why would you want your family being seen by individuals that basically copped out and said, I'll take this route and I'll get paid nothing for it pays for my education. So what? That's $150,000.
You know what else? Money pays and money talks, right? You get a pro athlete, you see him bust his knee on an NFL game or an NBA game. You're on the news that night knowing that guy's getting, they already had surgery. They start PT tomorrow. You ever have a problem trying to get PT after a surgery at the VA? I have.
Never had surgery.
Hey, Sean, you just tore your distal bicep tendon. Okay. Surgery. All right. PT starts in 2.5 months. What?
Yeah, and your arm's frozen. It's literally frozen.
What are you fucking talking about?
Yeah.
Every injury is, and then you go to PT, and then the first time, they're like, okay, this is the exercise you're doing. And they hand you some paperwork. Like, those are the exercises.
Do this on your own.
Do this on your own home. Do this on your own home. I had hip surgery. They told me it was going to take 3.5 months to fucking start PT. Well, we don't have enough techs. I'm like, that's not the fucking point. Send me through community care out somewhere else. Oh, they won't approve that.
I'm not saying there's
What?
not, I'm not saying there's not good doctors at the VA. I'm saying they're few and far between.
The administration and the processes is a joke.
But what I will say is in this state, there is access to pretty good mental health care
Massachusetts, yeah.
through the VA. Like there's some talented individuals.
I would say mental health is probably where I've gotten the best service.
But why? Because they put a shit ton of money into mental health services over the last 10 years.
Yeah.
That's why. But if you decide that because they know that nobody's getting surgery at the VA unless they have to, they're not putting money there. There's no money there. Like I went to the fucking ER at 2:30 in the morning. Every other ER, South Shore, Brockton, packed, 6-hour wait time, right? I walk into the VA, strep throat. I knew I had strep throat. I get it once in a while, every other year, whatever. Real fucking bad. I tried to let it take its course, which it'll resolve over a 2-week period. But after like 4 days, I was fucked. I was like, I can't fucking do this. I go to the fucking ER, urgent. They call it urgent care. There's nobody in there. It's just me and the doctor. I waited 5 minutes. Now, this is basically a primary care doctor that's on call. They called him down from the floor. And he looks at me, he goes, let's get a swab. Woohoo. 10 minutes later, you got strep throat. Here's your medicine. I was there for half an hour. Now, that kind of care is amazing, right? But it's on a lower level.
Yeah.
It's on a very lower level. If you have a serious medical condition, whether it's physical, right, like musculoskeletal or respiratory or whatever it happens to be, cancer, the VA is not for you.
No.
It is not for you.
No.
And that's embarrassing. That's embarrassing. This is a state where the best medical facilities in the world are situated. Mass General Health, Brigham and Women's, Boston Medical. You could rattle off the top 5, and they're the top 5 in the world, right? Children's Hospital. Why is the VA so fucked up? Because they don't care.
Yeah.
They don't care. And the people that suffer are the people that don't have access to private healthcare.
Bro, when I tore my bicep tendon, I'm waiting for the X-ray. I'm in the ER. I'm in urgent care, right? Get up there, and the lady's like, all right, stick your left arm on the table. And it's my right. Couldn't get that right. Set me out. Like, okay, cool. Like, he'll have a follow-up whenever they call you. Have a nice night. I'm like, arm sling? I can't even close my fingers. You know what I mean?
Now, what I will tell you.
Let's take a break.
Give me 1 second.
Okay.
Because this is really important. For anybody out there.
Because my knee's killing me.
For anybody out there that thinks that government healthcare, health insurance, single payer system is the way to go. The VA is your perfect representation of what single payer healthcare looks like, right? If you think for 1 second that privatized medicine, private healthcare is somehow not the way to go and that single payer healthcare is the way to go, you need to look at other models, Canada, Europe. You want a surgery on your knee? That's not an emergency surgery. That's an elective because you can still get around. We can give you crutches. You can move around. You can ambulate. You can do all your shit. No, seriously, this is how they think, right? If you have a broken hip or you have some kind of issue as an elderly person, musculoskeletal, those are electives. Those are not emergency surgeries. You're going to fucking wait. You're going to wait. And then you're going to be subject to whatever healthcare is in your area. So if you live out in a province or a town or a state that doesn't have a lot of money and doesn't have these healthcare facilities that we have in this state, hang on.
You're screwed.
Hang on, you're fucked. Hang on, you're fucked.
Yeah.
You're going to walk around limping with a walker for 3 to 6 months.
And that's where I was with my knee because of the misdiagnosis. I had to wait to then get on my wife's health insurance. And then I had to wait 8 weeks to get a primary care. And then at that point, I was like 13 months out of the original injury. And then I tore it again.
Yeah.
And then that was it, dude. Like, and that's why, like, I wanted to take a break to get up because, like, my right knee and then my left knee is destroyed. My right knee is, both of them, they're destroyed. You see how I walk around? Walk around like I'm fucking 66 years old.
People are tapped. I understand people saying that health insurances pay out to, their shareholders and all that stuff. And they charge money that they shouldn't charge. And they only cover shit that, to a certain point. I get that. I understand. Right? My wife has had 2 kids. We paid to, some money towards, because our insurance wouldn't cover the whole thing. I will take that every day of the week before I institute a system like the VA on the entire population.
Oh, yeah.